Hey, what's up guys, you Gypsy, and I'm back here today going to be bringing you guys my week 1 game in the Draft Premier League. So, for those of you guys who missed my auction video, where I pretty much gave a rundown of my thoughts of the Draft Premier League auction, my kind of predictions for how I think each team is going to do, go check it out, I'll leave it in the description below. But for this week 1 game, we are facing off against the Hiking Mountain Toadsters. I was drafted onto the Young Girders team, so yep, I'm slotted up into Ultra Sun and Moon this week, and I'm paired up against Jake, who is a guy I've known for a while. He's a friend of mine, and he's really progressed as a player since I met him all the way back in Gen 6, so it's exciting to face him off. I actually haven't played him since Gen 6, which is kind of crazy because that was a long time ago, but yeah, we're facing off against Jake, a very strong player. And he's got a very powerful team that he was able to use this week. It has a really good matchup against the draft that I decided to go with. Mega Scizor really is a problem for this team. I do have Rotom Wash, but Rotom's pretty heavily pressured by the rest of his team. And then he's got stuff like Infernape, which can be the Z user as well as Tapu Koko, and Hydreigon, which just force defensive responses and stuff like Muck and Taunty from my side. So yeah, he's got a very solid matchup, I'd say, versus me, but we've built a pretty strong team, so I'm pretty confident that we can outplay this matchup, certainly. A mons that he left on the bench were Suicune, and I think he also had he had another one, I forget which one it was, but it wasn't too significant. I think Suicune could have come over potentially something like Uxie if he really didn't expect me to bring Medicham, but he had to respect the mid bring, and I think these 6 were his best that he could have brought. So we're going to jump into the game. Before we do, I'll give a little brief rundown of the team that I've brought. So we've got a really bulky Tapu Koko. I can naturally take stuff like +2 BP from Adamant Mega Scizor after rocks. It allows me to kind of soft check a physical Infernape as well, which is really useful, as well as taking on his own Tapu Koko. I am Calm Mind Roost, T-Bolt, Hidden Power Ice, so I'm a really solid win condition if I can chip down the Nidoqueen. And I can achieve that through either knocking his berry or his lefties off with Taunt and wearing him down with spikes on Pharaoh, or even actually catching him with my fast Rotom here. So Taunt, my Koko, yeah, definitely a solid mon here, solid pivot and win condition in its own right. Then we have a very speed F Ferrothorn here with spikes. Spikes is amazing versus him. He may opt to bring removal in the form of like Defog on Scizor, Hydra or Koko, but if he removes, then he's removing his own potential hazards on my side, and I have pretty good opportunities to set my hazards up with Pharaoh coming in, the likes of Koko, even Uxie, potentially Hydra if it's choice locked and something that isn't like fire coverage. But yeah, Pharaoh's really nice. Obligatory checked stuff like Suicune, which he did have potential of bringing, and does help me a lot versus his Koko. Then we have a really bulky Assault Vest Torn. Again, helps me blanket check stuff like Mega Scizor. I do have Heat Wave for that thing. And I can take on stuff like Specs, Hydra with my tool, and I can switch in, knock off his Specs, U-turn out. I can soft check Ape as well. I can switch in special variants, I just chew all day. Physical variants, obviously that's a bit of a different story, but we do have some Fizz Def, and I can revenge that thing after rocks with Air Slash. So then I have a physically defensive Palisand here. Get up rocks, is able to check his Scizor pretty well, and I can help me with the Infernape, which is a pretty big threat to my team. Then I have a fast kind of bulky offensive Rotom. Does help me a lot versus the Scizor and can outspeed and surprise the Nidoqueen if he does stay in on it. Also helps me versus the Ape a bit. Ape can obviously get through Rotom if he's like SD or Nasty Plot, but it may prevent him from just clicking third bits for a turn if he wants to expect my Rotom to come in. And then we have a Muck here, 3 attacks, Recycle Muck, which is a pretty fantastic win con as well if I can weaken or I guess identify if Nidoqueen does or doesn't have like ground coverage. In that case, my Muck will be able to take it on. It also soft checks Koko. It lives any +2 hit from Adamant Scizor after rocks, which is useful, and I do have Flamethrower for that to 2-KO that thing. So yeah, like max HP variants of Scizor are 2-KO'd. So really solid mon here. That's going to be the team. We're going to jump into the match and see how we go. So I'm going to lead off with my Palisand here, as he leads off with his Uxie, and I lead off with Palisand in the off chance that he wanted to lead off with his Infernape or his Coco, which both match up really, really nicely versus either Taunt or my Pharaoh. If I lead Pharaoh and he leads Infernape, he gets immediate like offensive pressure off the bat, and Infernape pretty much, I just can't allow that thing free setup. I can't allow that thing to set up an SD or a sub, because then Amon dies. But if I lead Palossand and he leads Uxie, I can potentially get up rocks with him, or I can switch to Pharaoh and prevent my Palossand's Rindo from getting knocked off and just click rocks or spikes the following turn with Pharaoh, which is what I do. So he's going to get up his rocks, and he's going to click T-Wave here. He's yeah, so he's brought the Yellow Magic, and that's going to come into play. But I am going to get parried here, and this is unfortunate because I actually set up a second spike that turn, which would have definitely changed the course of this game. Because 2 spikes, although it's not significant damage, this Nidoqueen actually turns out to be a Super Berry set, which having 2 spikes up would have changed the way in which, changed the amount of times it would come in on spikes, and actually made it a lot harder for him to proc his berry on the switch in. So, and it also would have helped chip down the rest of his team. But unfortunately, we do get parried there. It happens, and I'm gonna go to Taunt now as he goes for the Super Fang, which is interesting. So he's definitely like a bulkier Nidoqueen set in my opinion, with the Super Fang. But the fact that his Uxie had rocks means that he's carrying some interesting different coverage on his Queen, which is important. So you're gonna have to watch out for that. But we knock off his Uxie's Rocky Helmet here, which he obviously brought for the Medi, and removing that thing means that yeah, just removing that thing means that Taunt isn't going to have to worry about pivoting in and taking damage on U-turn, so better to remove that thing earlier than later on in the game. So I'm going to U-turn out here, as he is actually going to reveal a U-turn of his own as I go into my Pharaoh, which is a really nice way of concealing the fact that he had U-turn there. I think that was clever. And he's now going to get momentum into his Infernape, which kind of is the biggest threat to my team, along with Scizor. So I'm going to go onto my Palossand here, as he does reveal sub, and this is kind of worst case scenario, because had I gone Taunt there and had he clicked SD, like I would have threatened him right off the bat. But because of the fact that he's sub, he's granted some leeway behind that sub, and he can kind of play accordingly depending on whatever switch I make. So definitely a fair bring on Jake's part. As now he's going to reveal the Z, and this is going to be able to kill Palossand at +2. So that's one of my really nice Scizor checks out of the way, and one of my methods of revenging his Infernape out of the way. But because this thing has popped its Z, it's no longer like as big a threat as it otherwise would be. But Taunt will be able to come in here and threaten this thing out with the Air Slash, as he is just going to go into his Uxie. I'm going to fire off the Air Slash here. It's going to do respectable chip. He's going to put him in range of where rocks will take him out, but because I had rocks on Palo, I've got no hope of obviously getting this up now. So I'm going to go into Coco here as he does U-turn, I believe. I go into Coco because had a U-turn there, it didn't allow him to go back into Ape, or anything really that threatened me, bar like passive mon like Queen, which I do have sort of responses to. So going into Coco there was a play that forced him into a defensive position as opposed to forcing him into like an offensive position where he could grab momentum there, which is this match really is going to come down to like who can maintain momentum and continue pressuring the opponent more than they can pressure you. So he's going to go into his Queen here. He's going to take more chip from spikes, which is important for Coco winning in the end game. As now Rotom's going to come in here as he fires off Toxic. So he's Toxic Queen with Super Fang. That's all I know thus far. But I am assuming that he is more than likely a berry. So I'm going to miss Pump here, which this Pump miss is pretty bad, because I would have gained vital information on this Coco, as well as forcing him into a spot where he was more than likely going to roost. Yeah, this means I'm going to have to go into my own Coco here, as he does just go for the T-Bolt. And I'm going to roost up here because his T-Bolt is obviously not going to take me out from that range of health. And he's going to bring back in his Uxie here, as I am going to sack off as he is going to sack off his Uxie to the T-Bolt. So that's one sack out of the way, and he's bringing Queen back in, and it's getting chipped down lower and lower. Eventually I'll be able to get up to +1 on something like his own Coco, or even like on Infernape per turn I scare it out, and be able to take out this Queen if I can get it low enough. So I'm going to go out here into my Taunt, as I think he does just fire off another Super Fang. Yeah, he fires off a Super Fang, and Jake's playing his Nidoqueen well. He doesn't want to, like, he knows that I can just click knockoff with my Taunt, and he doesn't want to lose his berry on his Queen, which is the fair play, in my opinion. Like, he kind of needs to preserve that in order not to lose the Coco. So right here I am just going to click knockoff, as he does go out into his Coco, And I remove his eject button, which is some interesting prep. And right here I'm going to go out into my Coco, knowing that I can take 2 T-bolts if he does want to go for that. But more than likely he was just going to roost up there. But he actually goes for U-turn, gets momentum back out into his queen, takes another round of spikes. Obviously here you see like how the additional layer would be really coming in clutch for me here. But going to go back out into my Taunt as he makes the double into Sizzle, which is a nice play. He takes a round of spikes, meaning that he's in range of Hurricane, but max HP variant that is. Which is, I'm assuming that's what he is. Like, he can really afford to be max attack, max HP versus me. He doesn't really have a reason to run speed, and he doesn't really, like, the kind of upside of running defense isn't justified over the usefulness that running max attack gives him. So I know that he's more than likely going to BP here, not wanting to risk me just taking him out with a heat wave. So I'm going to go into my Rotom here, which covers the BP really nicely, as that is what he's going to do. And right here I'm going to Volt. Now I Volt because he's not going Queen. Queen is his answer to Coco, which is the thing that loses in the game. If he loses Queen, he just loses to Coco, essentially. And the fact that he's shown Coco to be his switch into Rotom sort of makes me think that he's going to do it again. And even if he doesn't, he goes Hydra, and that thing gets vaulted on just the same. So I'm going to go for the Volt switch here, as his Coco takes 17 from that, so he's pretty bulky. I'm going to go back out into my Coco, and this is the opportunity I need to roost up, as he just roosts up himself. And right here, I think I just Hidden Power Ice, assuming that he's going to U-turn out. But instead, for some reason, he stays in here and T-bolts. And he gets a crit there, which is a little bit annoying, but he's going to bring me down to the range where I do want to heal up, because if this thing stays healthy, it can win, like I said. So he's going to roost up once again. I'm going to click Hidden Power again, just keeping him chipped. On the off chance that he wanted to go hard Queen, or like U-turn out into Queen, because he does outspeed me, I'd be able to get more chip on that thing. And this turn he does go into his Hydreigon here, and he takes this Hidden Power Ice. Like, I'm uninvested, and he takes like a decent chunk from that, considering Coco's pretty weak if he's not clicking electric moves. And this tells me that he's more than likely an offensive Hydra, so he's not like a bulkier Hydra, and he doesn't really need a bulkier Hydra because he's already got bulky Coco, Uxie, and Nidoqueen on his team. So this is more than likely like either potentially a Scarf or like a Life Orb set. So right here I'm going to go hard out into my Taunt, as I think he just roosts up here. No, he doubles into Sizzle, so this is a nice play again, forcing my Taunt. Me going either Taunt, Rotom, or I wasn't really going Rotom there. Me going Taunt or the Muck there, as he made the double to Sizzle, would have put him in a nice spot, because he forces my Taunt out and he can potentially set up on my Muck if I'm not carrying fire coverage. So I can understand the play there. So I'm going to switch out into my Rotom back again, because he has to make this play. Like, he can't risk, if he risks me staying in and going for Heat Wave, and he just like tries to SD up or gets greedy, he loses his win condition. So I know Jake's not the kind of player to throw away a game like that, so he's not going to make that kind of play. I am going to go out to my Rotom again. I'm going to make the same play I made last time. I'm going to Volt again, expecting him to make the play into his reliable switch in his Coco. And I'm going to go into Taunt here. Now the reason I go Taunt instead of just going out into my own Coco and going to my Ferrothorn or something like that is because after the next turn of switching out, Taunt will get enough health after regen to avoid being OHKO'd by neutral Bullet Punch. If it comes in on rocks again from Adamant Max Attack Sizzle, I'll be out of range, and I will be able to potentially catch him if he wants to roost up on the next time that exchange takes place. Every time I've switched out, basically. So if he tries to make a double like that again and bring it in, I'm going to be out of range, and he won't necessarily know that. He may just be calculating like max HP, but I do have quite a bit of defense investment, and he wouldn't know that at this stage because I haven't stayed in to tank a Bullet Punch. So yep, that was the kind of thought process behind that play here. So I'm going to switch out again into my Coco, as I think he does just go for the U-turn, and he's going to go back into his Sizzle here. Now this is an interesting play. Like, Sizzle is his win condition, but the fact that he brought it in my Coco here sort of led me to believe that he was baiting the Z. I thought he might bait the Z into Queen here. So I am just going to hard T-bolt, because if I T-bolt, actually I think I roost this turn, but if I T-bolt here, he's left very low. Like, if I T-bolt and he Bullet Punches, for example, he's left extremely low. If I T-bolt and he roosts, he only gains about 10% net HP. And if he makes a double into Queen and I just regular T-bolt, I don't I don't pop my Z, which I need. And if I click Z move here, his Sizzle dies. So I expect him to make some kind of SD play, hoping I don't have Z, or making the play out into queen here. And I think I do just roost up here, as I do, as he actually roosts up too. So he would have died to Z move there, but this turn I'm going to click T-bolt, and that does a chunk, and we get the full para. We get a para into full para. So the para kind of makes up for the para he got. No, he hasn't parried me yet. He actually clicked T-wave earlier. That para is pretty nice for me, actually. It's nice in the sense that I can potentially get a full para like I just did then versus Sizzle versus something like Torn later on, if he chooses to preserve the Sizzle. But he actually stays in and lets me take out his Coco here with the Z move. So he lets me take out his Sizzle there with the Z move, and that's really nice for the rest of my team because that takes a ton of pressure off Rotom. No longer has to stick around like healthy to deal with the Sizzle. Definitely like unfortunate the fact that he got parried there, because I think he told me after the game he would have played his Sizzle differently had it not got parried. Instead of sacking it off there to the Z move, he said he probably would have gone queen. It's very hard to say there because like that's a hindsight comment, but either way he does lose his Sizzle there, and that is huge pressure off the rest of my team. And at this point Coco's looking really nice. This queen's getting weakened, and I'm confident that this Coco can take on the last 3 remaining mons. So he's going to take another round of chip from that spike. As I go into my Torn here, he's just going to make the switch out into his Hydra. And I think I knock off here, yeah, removing his Life Orb, which is really good for my my Muck, because my Muck can wall this thing a lot easier if it doesn't have a Life Orb and doesn't have like Life Orb Earth Power firing off against me. So I'm going to U-turn out here. Going to go out into my Pharaoh, as I don't expect him to click a fire attack at all. I expect him to potentially roost up or click like T-wave or Toxic or something to catch my Torn staying in, or even my Muck or my Coco coming in. But Jack actually makes a really nice play and clicks Flamethrower here, I guess predicting the Pharaoh sack. Honestly, at that point, like Pharaoh wasn't critical to keep around. I've already established that his Coco is a more of a defensive set, and it doesn't have Calm Mind or anything like that. My Coco beats it 1v1. It was losing to Infernape, obviously, and chances are this Hydra did have fire coverage, and I was parried, so, like I was paralyzed, so I was never like hitting an attack anyway through para. So it was sort of expendable at that stage, but he does catch it there, which was a nice play on his part. So gonna go into my Muck here. I'm just gonna click Poison Jab, as he does stay in and reveal Earthquake, and that's actually mixed attacking Hydra. And my U-turn damage with Torn off on this Hydra revealed that it was actually mild, like minus defense nature, so that kind of tipped me off to the fact that he was more than likely mixed as opposed to having Earth Power. And the kind of use of that, I guess, is that it helps him take on Calm Mind Coco better. Like if I was Calm Mind and he was Earth Power, eventually I'd be able to boost to the point where that is doing very negligible damage. But the fact that he's regular EQ, he's going to be able to do more damage over the long term and do more damage to the Muck as well. So that's a nice bring. But right here, I'm just going to click Poison Jab and start Poison Jabbing and recycling. As we're not going to get the poison at all actually versus the Hydra, but we are going to recycle here, and he's going to set up an SD on my Muck with his Infernape. I Poison Jab here. Just wanting the damage. I put him in range of spikes. I was planning on sacking Pharaoh the following turn and then bringing in Tornadus or Tornadus on my Coco, one of the two, to just revenge this this Infernape. But we should get the poison here, which is really nice, and his Infernape is going to die, meaning that Rotom can stick around for a little bit longer. As he's now going to pop his berry with his Nidoqueen, and I'm going to switch out into my Torn, I believe, this turn. I go into my Torn, and I know I'm at a pretty nice amount of health at this point, so I am going to switch out into my Coco, expecting him to more than likely roost up as opposed to clicking T-bolt. But he actually does click T-bolt here, which was I guess a fine play. But I was expecting him to roost up there, wanting to keep this healthy, because this is the only thing that can really check my Coco in the long term, because it does have roost. In the off chance that I don't have roost myself, Calm Mind myself. And I did have Muck as a switch in there. I had my berry intact, and I could always switch in on rocks, take a T-bolt, and I'll pop my berry. But he does go for T-bolt there, and this means that my Coco is going to be left low. I probably should have gone Muck in hindsight, right off the bat, and just dealt with this Coco. But he does get the power there with a T-bolt, which is which is going to really potentially suck for Muck. Going to make it a lot harder to take on the rest of his team if I am parried, and Muck is a win con at this stage, so that was really unfortunate that he gets the 10% power there, but we did get the poison on his ape. So whilst the sludge-borne poison is a lot more likely to occur than a T-bolt para, it's still hacks. So he's going to U-turn out here, and he's going to go into queen, take another round of chip, as I am going to get fully parried. This turn I click recycle, so I would have had my berry intact, and yeah, that's the first para on this Muck. So going to go into Torn here, as he does just go for the Super Fang, and I am going to stay in here this turn and click Heat Wave on the off chance that he wanted to go into his Coco, which was weakened at this point. And Heat Wave and Air Slash, the difference in damage there was pretty negligible versus this Queen. I just want to get it low, essentially. Like any chip is good chip versus this thing, as we do actually get the burn. He's not physical Queen, so the burn isn't going to neuter his attack or anything, but it's going to be chipping him down 6% each turn, so a pretty wild game so far with all these secondary effects coming in, as I am going to go out to Rotom here, as he does just click Flamethrower there, and we are going to be able to take that. And this turn I do believe I just Hydro Pump, as we are going to take out his Queen, which means that Coco looks to be in the driving seat if I can roost up on his Hydreigon. And he's going to bring his Coco in here, and I'm just going to click Hydro Pump because I want to get damage off on this thing. I don't want him to recover without being punished. And we do about 48%, so the Hydro we missed earlier in the game would have done a nice chunk to this thing. So going to go into Muck, and he is going to T-Bolt here, hoping for the full para. But we are able to recycle our berry and get up to a nice amount. As I'm just going to keep clicking recycle as I get parried again. Eventually Muck will be able to get up to a nice amount of health, and Electric Drain will subside. And he's running out of terrain, and I need to keep Muck healthy. Like had I killed Coco whilst being like at about 40% or something with Muck, I would have lost to Hydreigon, because Hydreigon can outlast Torn with Roost. He doesn't die to a hit from Coco. Hidden Power Ice does pretty negligible damage considering he's got Roost, and he can kill me with EQ if I don't Roost up myself. Muck is my best answer to his Hydreigon, and keeping this my Muck healthy is the priority over killing the Coco here. Killing Coco would be really short-sighted. Killing Coco, like whilst Muck is weak, would be throwing the game. So preserving health on Muck is my play, 100%. And this turn he's going to go hard onto Hydra, and I'm going to get fully parried there. So that was unfortunate. I'm just going to recycle up once more, and he's going to start going for Earthquake. And Earthquake crits me there, does 69%, another crit. And my Poison Jab is going to be doing a decent amount to him here. Going to recycle up as I get parried here. I'm not able to recycle there as his Earthquake does under 50. So interesting rolls on this Earthquake. As I'm going to go to Torn here, as he does burn another Earthquake. And at this point I'm thinking, if I can just burn through his Earthquake PP, my Muck should be able to wrap this game up, provided I don't get parried to death, fully parried to death. So I'm going to start spamming Air Slash, just wanting a free switch into my Coco to start roosting up. I know that Coco can roost up pretty comfortably on Earthquakes from Hydreigon as long as I don't get crit, and I can actually burn through a lot of his PP. Even if Coco like gets crit after like 5 or 10 Earthquakes, I will have burnt through a considerable amount to the point where Muck doesn't have to, outlast a ton of Earthquakes through para and click recycle, because he's already burnt quite a lot of Earthquakes at this point. So I'm gonna start clicking Air Slash and Heat Wave. If I get a burn with Heat Wave, my Coco will actually just win on its own, because I will be able to roost up on this Hydreigon indefinitely. But we missed Heat Wave there, so you'll never know, as I do get 2 Air Slash flinches in a row. And right here, instead of going for the third Air Slash flinch, I am going to U-turn out to Coco, knowing that he is going to recover, and if he doesn't recover and takes out my Coco, I can just go back into Torn and click U-turn. But so he's going to roost up here, and I'm going to start roosting up myself. I'm going to continue spamming Roost. The reason I preserve Torn there instead of sacking it off is because I can always switch back into Torn on an Earthquake and burn another Earthquake PP, as opposed to having to, not go for the crit with Coco on Muck. So gonna spam Roost as he does start clicking Earthquake, and Earthquake's doing 47, which is nice damage. We're chewing that up pretty comfortably because we are so Fizz Def, and I'm gonna go for the Calm Mind here. as he is going to go for the Earthquake with Hydra. I go for Calm Mind to deter him from clicking Flamethrower versus me, because I don't want him to be clicking Flamethrowers over clicking Roosts. Me going for Calm Mind kind of encourages him to click Earthquake, and that is what I really need for my Muck to win, for him to burn through his Earthquake PB. So, gonna Roost up again. He's doing under 50, which is really nice. So this Coco can actually 1v1 this Hydra after he burns through all his Earthquake PP, but he crits me there again, which does 70%, and that's really unfortunate, because that's gonna put Coco in a rough spot. Had he not crit me there and I just healed up further, I would have been able to live a crit later down the line. But yeah, this is kind of rough for my Coco. I'm just going to keep roosting up. I am out of range of an Earthquake. Even like a Maxwell Earthquake shouldn't be able to kill me from above like 55%. But he gets another crit there. So he crits me for like the 3rd time with his Hydra, and my only chance now is for Muck not to get fully parried and to continue healing up with Recycle. He's going to go for Draco here, and he's going to get the full paralysis versus my Muck, and that is going to be the game. So if either Coco or Muck didn't get crit or fully parried, either of those two mons have won this endgame. But yeah, unfortunately this game was heavily tainted by parries and crits and hacks on both sides. Jake got fully parried with his Scizor. I'm not sure how much that would have ended up mattering, considering he sacked it off the next turn to my Coco's T-Bolt, but Z-move. But definitely unfortunate nonetheless. His Ape got Sludge Bomb parried, which meant that I was able to keep around some Death Fodder in Rotom, which didn't really end up doing anything, but it's still kind of unfortunate for him. And of course, Coco and Muck, the two win conditions, two different paths to victory, were both hacked out there. So that was a very frustrating ending to my week 1 game. I think overall this was a really good game. I think it was played really well on both sides, but definitely not the way either of us wanted this to go down. I think we were both pretty keen for a great clean game, and we would have been satisfied with the outcome regardless had it been a clean one. But obviously, you know, endings like this always leave a bad taste in the mouth. But you know, Mons is just like that sometimes. So it is what it is. Unfortunately, at this point in the series, this was the 3rd game we'd played, and our team had already lost 2. So this was pretty bad, because this was a game that we expected to win, and we were down 0-3 at this point after this match. But you know, thankfully the boys piped up the next day and went on to win 4 straight. So the young Goaters ended up winning week 1, which is great to see. And yeah, those matches were nail biters. They were really good matches on both ends. The Hiking Mountain Toadsters really brought it. But ultimately, in the deciding game with Vess and Hiker, Vess was able to outplay in the end, and yeah, I guess use his talent effectively to beat Hiker's Mega Guard team, which is pretty crazy. So that's going to be week 1 of the Draft Premier League. Hopefully next week we'll be able to bring you another win, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if you did, and let me know what you guys thought of this week 1 game in the comments, and I'll catch you next time.